Penguin Lit. In Dickens' early life we see a stern but unrecognized preparation for the work that he was to do. He was the second of 8 poor children and was born at Lansport in 1812. His father, who was supposed to be the original Mr. Micawber, was a clerk with piles of debts in a navy effort. In the picture of the Micawber family with its tears and smiles and general shiftlessness, we have a suggestion of Dickens's own family life. At 11 years of age the boy was taken out of school and went to work in the cellar of a blacking factory. We can appreciate the boy and the suffering more when we find both reflected in the character of David Copperfield. Later on the boy was sent to Wellington House Academy. He learned little at this place, being interested chiefly in stories and in acting out the heroic parts which appealed to his imagination. But again his personal experience was of immense value and resulted in his famous Nicholas Nickleby. When only 13 years old, he left the school and again went to work, this time as a clerk in a lawyer's office. Everything that Dickens attempted seems to have been done with vigor and intensity, and within 2 years we'd find him reporting important speeches and writing out his notes. At the age of 21 he dropped his first little sketch stealthily, with fear and trembling, into a dark letter box, in a dark office up a dark court in Fleet Street. The name of the sketch was M. Armand's and his cousin, and it appeared with other stories in his first book, Sketches by Bez, in 1835. His best work, Pickwick, was published serially in 1836 to 1837, and Dickens's fame and fortune were made. The remainder of Dickens's life is largely a record of personal triumphs. Pickwick was followed rapidly by Oliver Twist, Nicholas Nickleby, Old Curiosity Shop, and many other works in 1842. While still a young man, Dickens was invited to visit the United States and Canada, where his works were even better known than in England. His American Notes, 1842, and Martin Chuzzlewit, 1843 to 1844, struck a false note, and Dickens began to lose something of his popularity. The excitements exhausted Dickens, physically and spiritually, and that was the inevitable result. He died in 1870 over his unfinished Edwin Drood, and was buried in Westminster Abbey. Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Full title, Oliver Twist, or The Parish Boy's Progress, publication, in serial form between February 1837 and April 1839. Book edition came in 1838. Plot summary: Oliver Twist is born into a life of poverty and misfortunes, raised in a workhouse in the fictional town of Mudford, located 70 miles north of London. He is orphaned by his father's mysterious absence and his mother Agnes' death in childbirth. Ever spends the first 9 years of his life in a badly run home for young orphans, and then is transferred to a workhouse for adults. After the other boys bully Oliver into asking to a more gruel at the end of a meal, Mr. Bumble, the parish beadle, offers £5 to anyone who will take the boy away from the workhouse. Oliver narrowly escapes being apprenticed to a brutish chimney sweep and is eventually apprenticed to a local undertaker, Mr. Sowerberry. When the undertaker's other apprentice, Noah Claypool, makes disparaging comments about Oliver's mother, Oliver attacks him and incurs the Sowerberry's wrath. Desperate, Oliver runs away at dawn and travels toward London. Outside London, Oliver, stout and exhausted, meets Jack Dawkins, a boy of his own age. Jack offers him shelter in the London house of his benefactor, Fagin. It turns out that Fagin is a career criminal who trains orphan boys to pickpockets for him. After a few days of training, Oliver is sent on a pickpocketing mission with 2 other boys. When he sees them swipe a handkerchief from an elderly gentleman, Oliver is horrified and runs off. He is caught but narrowly escapes being convicted of the theft. Mr. Brownlow, the man whose handkerchief was stolen, takes the feverish Oliver to his home and nurses him back to health. Mr. Brownlow is struck by Oliver's resemblance to a portrait of a young woman that hangs in his house. Oliver thrives in M.R. Brownlow's home, but 2 young adults in Fagin's gang, Bill Sykes and his lover Nancy, capture Oliver and return him to Fagin. Fagin sends Oliver to assist Sykes in a burglary. Oliver is shot by a servant of the house and, after Sykes escapes, is taken in by the women who live there, Mrs. Maylie and her beautiful adopted niece, Rose. They grow fond of Oliver, and he spends an idyllic summer with them in the countryside. But Fagin and a mysterious man named Monks are set on recapturing Oliver. Meanwhile it is revealed that Oliver's mother left behind a gold locket when she died. Monks obtains and destroys that locket. When the Maylies come to London, Nancy meets secretly with Rose and informs her of Fagin's designs, but a member of Fagin's gang overhears the conversation. When word of Nancy's disclosure reaches Sykes, he brutally murders Nancy and flees London. Pursued by his guilty conscience and an angry mob, he inadvertently hangs himself while trying to escape. Mr. Brownlow, with whom the Maylies have reunited Oliver, confronts Monks and wrings the truth about Oliver's parentage from him. It is revealed that Monks is Oliver's half-brother. Their father, Mr. Leford, was unhappily married to a wealthy woman and had an affair with Oliver's mother, Agnes Fleming. Monks has been pursuing Oliver all along, in the hopes of ensuring that his half-brother is deprived of his share of the family inheritance. Mr. Brownlow forces Monks to sign over Oliver's share to Oliver. Moreover, it is discovered that Rose is Agnes's younger sister, hence Oliver's aunt. Fagin is hung for his crimes. Finally, Mr. Brownlow adopts Oliver, and they and the Maylies retire to a blissful existence in the countryside. Crucial points forming questions with answers. 1. Who was commonly known by the nickname the Artful Dodger? Hence, Jack Dawkins. 2. Who does no insult when he says a regular right down bad done? Hence, Agnes Fleming, Oliver's biological mother. 3. How does Oliver violate the rules of the workhouse? Hence, by asking for more brew ale. 4. What is Mr. Sowerberry's profession? Hence, undertaker. 5. Mr. Brownlow notices that Oliver bears a close resemblance to whom? Hence, 1. The woman in the portrait on his wall. 6. What does Nancy pretend to be in order to drag Oliver back? Hence, Oliver's sister. 7. To whom does the dog Bullseye belong? Hence, Bill Sykes. 8. What image haunts Bill Sykes after he commits murder? Hence, Nancy's eyes. 9. Which 3 characters are all related to Oliver? Hence, Rose Maylie, Monks and Agnes Fleming. 10. What does Oliver last see Fagin? Hence, in a jail cell. 11. What is the real name of Edward Leford? Hence, Monks. 12. Who is subject to violent spasmodic fits? Hence, Monks. 13. Dickens wrote Oliver Twist in response to what piece of legislation? Hence, the Poor Law of 1834. 14. Which character in Oliver Twist is named after a loathsome boy that Dickens encountered while working in a factory? Hence, Fagin. 15. What was the name of the magazine in which the first installment of Oliver Twist appeared in 1837? Hence, Bentley's Miscellany.